those who oversaw the care and consecration of the servitors, were looked upon to provide hope through their words, teachings and interpretations of the machine's wants, needs, desires. But Fikul saw another path, one that would later be mimicked and twisted by the techno-deviant splicers in the plague lands of Earth, while he and his explored their own darker interpretations of faith. Fikul is a fanatic, scorned and abandoned. Fikul is all who would strive to regain strength of self and purpose. He is a survivor. He is the outcast priest of the broken plains, and his sermon is death and all the glory that follows. In Fikul's eyes, all those of the outcasts who rallied to his philosophies, machines, were not superior. They were not gods, they were tools. Instruments to be mastered and controlled and manipulated, in service of Elixni pride. None should grovel for ether. None should have their honor bound to the whims of manufactured deities. But the evolution of Fikul's faith did not end here. The machines, the very things that had regulated the whole of their existence, were tools. Why not life itself? Why not death? There are many tales of the time between Fikul's fall and his rise again as spiritual leader of the scorned barons. His struggle to find strength as a battered drag, his journeys across the system to challenge his faith, his joining with the other outcasts who were scorned, and his eventual union with his father. The only thing that matters, however, when confronting the dangers of Fikul is this: he is a creature of faith. His faith is the antithesis of all who stand in the light. That faith has raised an army. That army will baptize all who challenge its purpose in an unending sea of death. They will never stop. They will never give in, because they know they are right, and everything you stand for is wrong. Good old Forsaken campaign. Now we have a Gift of Madness, which is apparently about the bomber, which was one of the barons. I have a bit of a drink first. Okay. The questions no one asks. Was the bomber always mad, or was he driven to it? Was the madness a gift or a curse? Did the struggle for survival outside the structure and ritual of the house system crack his mind? The things he'd seen, done. The shore asks much of those who call it home. Most simply find their end through the harsh will of these harsh lands, or by the hand of their hardened agents who stalk its fracture expense. Bandits, cutthroats, cannibals, awoken patrols, guardian heroes. There are a billion ways to die among the jagged wilds of the tangled shore. To challenge those odds is no small feat. To do so while maintaining stealth, rarer still. However, it is also possible the bomber was this all along. Isn't it also possible the bomber was this all along? Mad, deranged, eager to inflict destruction, lustful for the chaos and death to follow. The seeding of the Aquatian fields, the bombing of the Origin libraries. Canex's handiwork has been linked to numerous tragedies, both as a rogue enemy of the reef and in league with his scorned brothers and sisters with whom he grew strong, with whom he found the purpose he once lacked. These points, an examination on the birth of madness, I raise to address a lingering concern. Seek the awoken libraries. Speak to cryptogs with knowledge of the reef, the shore. Scour the records of the bomber's deeds. Feel the pain of those who suffered the fire of his devastation. Remember the fields. Weep at the unimaginable loss when the libraries fail. Allow yourself the comfort of knowing the sinister creature is now dead and gone by guardian hand. But linger on victory's pride for only a short while, because the truth I seek to tell you has yet to be revealed, and it is this. The mad bomber is this. Canex is no more, yet the shore remains ever untamed. Despite valiant efforts, despite your incredible strength, And if the shore remains tangled, its edges ever shifting, ever dire, then who else may it drive to madness? First long-lost survivors of the fabled Golden Age, then stray awoken and discarded fallen. Maybe next the warriors of the light, guardians. After all, more will surely come, and with more, however righteous you may be, the odds shift further in the shore's favor, in favor of madness. And if not another guardian, why not you? I mean, I suppose it's a fair point. We're slowly inching closer to the end of the book. Just about 40 pages now. Which, honestly, I did not expect it to take this fucking long. Like, we're probably gonna end like a bit over 3 hours just on the lore read. That's quite a bit, to be honest. Okay. By thy tongue be damned. A drag fell, left to die. A forgotten pirate set on a path towards salvation. His crew had raided the moon looking for ether. They found only death. And then he was alone. Hyrax the small. Hyrax the timid. The weak was lost to the depths of the hellmouth. A solitary scavenger down among the hollows where dead things dwell. How he survived is a story untold. An impossible tale unknown only to Hyrax himself. In that secret is his strength. For poor, weak, pathetic Hyrax came out of that hell as something other. Still fallen, still alone, but changed by all he'd seen and learned. His mind opened, set adrift through the wonders of all the nightmares he had never imagined. Some say he spent his time hidden in the shadows of that cruel land, scouring the mysteries of the world's grave. Others suggest he peered into a hateful shrine and found truth in the unutterable horrors whispered from the abyss. Truth is, only Hyrax knows. Truth as simple as it is puzzling. Yes, he did. Scour the grave, hear the whisper. Only then could all that followed transpire. For a lowly drag to rise from their docking to stand as a baron is rare enough. But that a fallen of any stature could crack the layer of understanding that barricade the known universe from the ascendant plane is more than improbable. It was impossible, until it wasn't. For Hyrax succeeded where so few have. He crafted his own throne world, and began a monstrous quest to expand his knowledge, etching its hardest truths upon his enemies, and his work has progressed unchecked. It is his name that children do not speak when sharing tales of the haunting of Nemesis. It is his blood that paladins and corsairs alike wish to spill for the slaughter as at Gaspra. Hyrax the Twisted, Hyrax Ascendant, the mind-bender whose tongue is a weapon, whose experiments seek to unravel sanity and reshape imagination, that his subject may become other, tools of his vile bidding. And so the warning spread. When the fallen who speak in the language of the damned calls, do your best not to listen, for once his words take hold, your will shall fade, replaced by its antithesis. And then, like that poor, weak fallen drag, you too will know darkness. You too will be alone. I do like that we're going through all the barons one by one. Which the next one is the Trickster. Which this part is called Riddled with Lies. A simple riddle for you to consider. Only truth can conquer lies. But what is truth? And in whose eyes? What then of the butcher of Bamberger? What then of the Psyche Hold's slayer? The terminus of the Grey Legion? The silver of the Shadowed Veil? The sliver of the Shadowed Veil, sorry. The bandit of Old Bassa? the dire siren of Valiant's reprieve. What then of so many who are one, a single scourge responsible for many varied tragedies? Trickster, the liar, silver-tongued Araskis, the wit. She who bartered with the spider and nearly cost him his life. She who swindled a dozen bounty hunters that she alone may profit. So many tell of Araski's sleight of hand and tongue and mind. The enemy who has won battles when no battle was fought, who has killed more rivals than have ever risen to her challenge. What is known and unknown, none can say, and the sly prankster would have it no other way. Of all the barons marked by scorn, it is Araskis to fear, for her greatest weapon is the dissolution of truth. She will give you certainty, only to reshuffle the deck. She will grant you desire, only to reveal it truly regret. If this realm can allow for gods, then she may be the first among devils, unknowable, unpure. Her tongue will cut you down long before your body falls. If you don't believe, if you find yourself questioning the depth of her deceit, ask yourself a simple question. Did you kill her? And if you did she die? If the answer is yet, her trap is set. If the answer is, it's okay. You don't have to say it. Maybe you will survive out among these wild shores longer than most, though maybe not as long as you'd like. Next is Rexis. Who was Rexis? Is it the machinist? I think it might be Rexis Van. They don't really mention the Baron name. Yeah, they don't tell which one he was. That's okay. This part is called Anguish Tenfold. It was Rex's Van who saw the final days of their House of Wolves. With cold hatred he hunted and slaughtered their servitors until none remained, and thus a rabid house did fall. But Rex's Van's rage was not sated, as the wolves alone were not the architects of his fury. All fallen who clung to the ritual of house politics were his enemy, total and complete. It is told that he was starved as a young drag. He watched in agony as others grew strong, while he and his closest brothers and sisters were kept low. They were unworthy, pathetic, unwanted. But Rexis was ever aware. He saw the lie of the Archon's worship, how servitors were revered upon a pedestal of godhood as a means to control the masses. Maybe there was a time when the fallen theology was one with the greater concerns. No more. Their houses fractured, at war with one another, old graces long since neglected in favor of a more desperate purpose, survival. While cast low, Rexis found strength in his growing hatred. Only when he found common disdain among those who twisted outcasts who would call themselves scorned, who wore their hatred, derision as a badge of honor, did Rexis also find an outlet for his anger. His new brothers and sisters saw great value in his unchecked aggression. They were all a bit mad in their own right, all a bit twisted. But where others slipped towards insanity, Rex's mind and intent were clear. The agony of a terrible death was his aim. Target of his wickedness, the very servitors he had been denied. The very machines that sustained the fallen. Now I know which one he was. The fucking hangman. He would tear and slice and rend their metal until their hissing deaths rang around the shore, the reef, the entire system. He would make all who do not stand with the scorned barons feel the anguish he once felt, tenfold. And he would do so gleefully, watching the life drained from their eyes. Next, we have a blind eye toward tomorrow, which is the sniper. Have a drink first. That was the one who killed Sundance, Kate's ghost, in the sort of Forsaken. Pyra the Phantom, Pyra the Blind, the fallen Baron with the all-seeing eye and the crack shot. The Awoken link him to the legend, the ghost of Hellwise Canyon, believing it was Pyra and Pyra alone who haunted the winding depths, picking off intruders and holding off Corsair raiding parties as his fellow barons planned their violent reign in the maze of caverns near the canyon's heart. He was unseen during the Wolves' uprising, but many credit him with the assassination of the Queen's palace guard. None can verify, but each fell to a single shot, clean, precise, fatal. But how can a blind pirate who had been discarded and scorned by his house become the deadliest shot this side of Mars? This is where the Baron's true strength hides. They are each a devil worthy of your hate, but together they are so much more. Not simply devils, but hell itself, manifest, angry, and aggressive. Rumors and legend merge to tell of the machinist's expert hand, the rifleman's cybernetic eye, and the link between his sight and the tracking system on his rifle. What he sees, he hits. What he hits, he kills. There is evidence of Fallen giving themselves to technology, becoming other, becoming more, as they marry their physical selves to enslaved mechanics. The mercenary Tanix is one example. More machine than Fallen now, an abomination in the eyes of traditional Fallen belief. The Splicers and their augmentation through Siva, a twisted experiment brought low by the mighty hand of their heroes of iron. Is Pyra any different? The Baron and Tanix and the Splicers are each and all individual dangers, driven by their own ambition. They are more likely to wage war with one another than see their commonality. Yet are they not of a kind? Are they not evidence of something greater wending its way through the Fallen's dying culture? Are they not the warning signs of a new terrible evolution? One can only wonder and hope these horrid amalgamations of life and technology are simply outliers and are the promise of tomorrows yet to come. Next we have the Rider, in part called the Ragged Valley Sprint. The Ragged Valley is long and harsh and no valley at all, not by traditional definitions. Its hollow length runs between a series of lashed asteroids on the shore's far western edge. They call it a valley to be poetic, but in truth it is simply the chaotic space between massive rocks that scrap and smash into one another in a violent dance. The distances from mass to mass ebb and flow without warning, a constant deadly repositioning of the landscape. That ever-changing hollow is the valley. Only the mad and desperate would dare run its length, with one exception. Yavex, the Rider. The reason she made the run changes with the telling. You know she is neither mad nor desperate, what with her skills on the pike and killer determination. But the run itself, it's a legend as awe-inspiring as any Guardian's, save the fact Yavex is a wicked beast and better off dead. The story goes, she was running Ether, or making off with lost Golden Age tech. Some say Clovis Bray science, others tell it was drivers from a forgotten Warmind. Or maybe she just dropped the Guardian and was running full throttle from a fire team set on revenge. A common theme this far out. Or was it pride? Did a captain, or a Kel, or an Archon challenge her ability to ride? Did Fikru? After all, their relationship is complicated. None of that matters. Not to me. Each version of the start is as interesting as the next, but the run itself? Her ride through the gnashing jaws of death? Most Guardians who have heard it dismiss it. Don't want to give credit to one so infamous. The scorned barons with the blood on her hands, the loot in tow, and her bonnet set to top speed. But she deserves it. Don't believe me? Ask Marcus Wren. He wasn't there that day, but he'd heard tell and couldn't believe. So he made the run himself. 4 goes, no dice. 1 resurrection, 4 sparrows buttered to rubble. Thank you for the best, Tarmac. Marcus Wren, the Sparrow Racing League champion and hero to speed junkies and race-bound city-wide, couldn't sprint that valley. Too random, he said. Too chaotic. Can't read the rock 1 minute to the next. Can't read the angles. But he tried again, and on the 5th go, he scraped through a narrow as the collision hit. He'd made it. The impossible was possible, though he refused to admit Yavix could have done the same. Not that it mattered. That Wren had come out alive proved it could be done, and if it could, why not Yavix? Not that Yavix ever cared for validation. Not yours, not Wren's, not any Guardians, not any Fallens, not anyone's. She took pride in recognition from her brothers and sisters barons, and no others. Okay. Now, we have actually 2 parts about the Machinist. Truth Tinkered and a Scorn Path. I'm just going to read both in a row. If you had not heard of the Machinist before, know that others had. While her crimes may not live in infamy in the heart of city dwellers, the Wraith and its Awoken know all too well her long reign of terror. Eliquis the Bandit, they call her. Eliquis the Scourge, the Scorn Machinist, Tinker Lord of a houseless crew. But should those names be new to your ears, there are others you trust who have felt the pain of her vile campaign. Ask your Arak of the Machinist's deeds. Ask him about the siege of Aran, the hijacked ship, its stolen contents, and its guardian protectors lost or captured at the hands of the Scorned. Speak to your vanguard of the Solis Descent, more guardians felled and an armory stripped of its cash. The lowly drag who challenged tradition only to be cast aside. The lowly drag who found her own strength in a troubling bond with forsaken kin. She grew strong as an outcast, grew mean, then found her purpose with the guidance of a preacher of sorts, and a new, more driven crew. Now then, the question you must ask yourself. Had you known of the Baron's deed? Had you heard tell of the Machinist's crimes? Could you have changed the path tread from there to here? From yesterday to today? Better yet, your vanguard, your factions, your friends and allies. What all have they kept from you? If they spoke not of the scorned barons, if they issued no warning, is it because they did not see the full scale of the danger? Were they too distracted by wars within and interests of their own to issue the guidance needed for you to see the shore for the threat it has always been? Perhaps given guidance that may well have saved countless lives, or at least one life in particular. That life being Cade, of course. Ouch. Now for the second part about Eliquis. It was Eliquis the Machinist who'd begun hoarding the servitors, and Rexis the Hangman who slaughtered them at every turn. 2 allies driven by opposing forces, one science and the unmaking of faith, the other rage and its relentless push to destroy. There had long been tension between the two, as Rexis had, more than once, slipped into the Machinist's workshop to inflict himself on the servitors caged there. Thickwool the Fanatic, the spiritual leader and one-time Archon priest, watched patiently as their rivalry grew. He saw strength in their ire. He saw fire and fury, but also more. A new path forward, one that could join their passions and drive them further. A whole stronger than its warring parts. Fickle waited, biding time as tensions rose and threatened to splinter the Baron's loyalties. Only when Elaichris could take no more, on a night when she caught the hangman prepared to slaughter her latest haul of lesser servitors, did Ficul step in. Ficul motioned to Elaichris and said, "Bring me a servitor." As Rexus hissed with anticipation, she hesitated, but Ficul was patient. "Where is your trust?" Elaichris released the servitor from its bondage. Ficul motioned the servitor closer, then turned to Elaichris. "You have gathered many, machinist. Hundreds, maybe more. Our own supply, our life force fed by slaved mechanics." Elaichris nodded to the servitor as it inched closer to the Archon's open arms, welcoming the once revered orb as one would a child. The other barons began to bark, a rhythmic warrior's chant. "For all the value in your work, it is not enough to feed ourselves." Ficul hugged the servitor. There was a tenderness to the embrace, a sorrow. "We must also starve our enemies, as you were once starved." With a blur, Ficul's lower arms unsheathed and triggered a pair of polished sparking shock blades. "As were we all." The servitor, still held with the clutches of the Archon's powerful upper arms, cried a shrill digital retch, pained with confusion as the blade carved its outer shell and plunged deep into the core of its systems. Ether hissed and sprayed. Ficul released the machine's silent shell, and it clanged lifeless to the ground. He turned to Elaichris. "Do you see?" Elaichris smiled. She was ever the brightest among them, though her focus could lose clarity when she became frenzied. The barons had long been in trouble for the awoken and fallen of the reef. That trouble had been limited to hit-and-run tactics. What Ficul had just presented was a new way. Ficul stepped to Rexus. "Do you see?" The brute barked in response. "Kill them all!" Ficul laughed. "Not all, Hangman. Just the ones we do not need." The barons cheered as Ficul continued. "Every servitor, any servitor bound to a house is now target, until none remain but those upon whom we feed." I suppose that's one way to do it. Now we have Kate 6 Reminiscences. Okay, I'll tell the story about it when fallen. It didn't happen like that. We didn't, do anything actively. No handshake, no icy stare-off, grudging mutual respect. I don't even know which hand you would shake. Do they shake hands? It must be complicated. Anyway, it was like this. I was on the moon. I cracked a high structure near Mare Brium. Hey, Tekiris, thank you for the raid. Looking for a shrine, and they just swarmed. Ranks and ranks and ranks of thrall pouring out between the columns, but the columns were knights, and all shadows behind them rose up hissing sorcery. Of course I ran. I had a line of egress, and while, yes, it was full of thrall and I had a backup too, I went upslope, to cover in the shadow of a crashed phaeton. Emptied my machine gun, ducked down to reload, and saw her at the other end of the hall, killing Thrall, a fallen in exile colors, bannered in the marks of a baron, though the flags were cloth-torn and stained with high ash. She was alone. I think she must have lost her crew. I didn't really have time to shoot her, and she didn't really have time to shoot me, so we just went back to killing Hive. Knights pushed me out into the open and back up the range to a high stone saddle in the shadow of an old interferometry array. It was good ground, so she came up there too. For a while we just killed things, which is hard to make interesting in a story, so I'll pass it over. At the end, the wizards came. I climbed the array to get an angle on them, and she fell back to the base of the antenna, where she broke her swords off in a night. I saw that happen, and I don't know if I can tell you how I felt. It She was another living thing with a mind. I could understand that she hadn't hauled at me